So this is a bonus segment because Danny up there, oops, wrong side, already getting off to a great
I'm
start.
squirrely like that.
I know. Well, sometimes it flips the video, so if I point a certain direction, it's awkward, but such is the matter of technology. Danny cannot make it for tomorrow's live stream, so we're going to have a bonus segment, which is a Shrewd check, which we haven't done in a very long time in terms of actually analyzing a video and going through and critiquing and responding to it and just having a grand old time doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And so today's Shrewd check video that I picked out.
Brought to you by Prager.
Well, brought to you by the Young Turks, which is brought to you by
right.
Pfizer.
Yeah.
So essentially, it is. But today's video is from the Young Turks. They had a conversation between Cenk and Anna Kasparian and Dennis Prager. Mm-hmm. And while Dennis does a monologue, really. Yeah, it's more of a monologue and a rant from Cenk. And Dennis is more just like, well, I can chime in whenever I want, whenever you want me to, but this is your show.
Well, it's a really good example of how the left debates.
Yeah, it is.
Which is basically them shouting over you and not giving you a chance to. This is the norm with the View. This is the norm with left-wing media.
Silence and censor. And then when they actually do have a debate with you, then they'll shout you down because your point is dangerous and not worth listening to. So we're going to address this. We are going to point out the ideas and the facts and the rationale that Dennis wasn't allowed to.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to jump into that. Yeah, we got your back, Dennis. So we're going to jump into that and we'll get her done.
Get her done.
So here we go. Okay, so this is the video from the Young Turks. And I have it started at 1 minute because the first minute is a bit of
a long video.
Well, it's a longer video, and we wanted to focus on the points that were important. Mm-hmm. So we're jumping right in, and Cenk is going to attack Dennis, and then we'll address that.
Good old Cenky.
America, January 6th.
No. You can't throw out bombshells and then move on.
All right.
You think that the Israeli government or the average Israeli who voted for this government thinks that Palestinians are not fully human?
Absolutely. Then why don't you let them go? Why can't they have their own state?
Because it'll be run by Hamas. Are you foolish?
Okay, so what? So what? The right-wing, violent government of Israel kills Palestinians all the time. Okay. So you're saying, wait, no, but you're saying the Palestinians cannot govern themselves. Isn't that what you're saying as a fact?
You believe that there is moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas. That's all I needed to hear.
You're literally saying they're not equal. You're saying the Palestinians and the Israelis are not equal. We have to violently oppress them for the rest of their lives. How long is the occupation going to go? How long are you going to keep millions of Palestinians as prisoners because you think they're less than human?
Okay, Israel doesn't want to commit suicide because you sitting in America have it good, okay?
Okay, so you're saying never, right? You're going to imprison Palestinians for the rest of time, is that correct?
When the Palestinians disavow terror and stop trying to destroy Israel and don't announce that they want to destroy Israel, there will be peace.
Dennis, they have done that.
So one really quick thing here is you'll notice that Cenk is trying to basically take the moral high ground and say oh, they're victims.
Yeah,
that's the basic point that he's trying to make.
Well, they're not only victims; they're oppressed and they are essentially enslaved and held captive by Israel.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that you'll notice Israel does not go out of their way to attack Jordan, to attack Lebanon, to attack any of the bordering states anywhere around.
Which have all espoused a desire to see the end of the nation of Israel.
Yeah, Israel responds to very obvious acts of aggression by Hamas, which is a terrorist organization that has basically said, and not only just words, but actually makes every effort by making all sorts of attacks on Israel. And Cenk is basically taking the point of view that, Israel should just bend over and give them whatever they want and give them a state, thinking that that's somehow going to solve the problem. But Hamas has made it very clear they don't want a state. They want Israel to disappear.
Yeah.
They want to
they essentially, there's a reason that they're supported by Iran. because Iran wants to see Israel wiped off the face of the map, and they know that if they give enough power to Hamas, that Hamas will continue their attacks and continue their assaults on Israelis and kill more Jews.
Mm-hmm. And this is part of why Dennis says that that the Palestinian people in Hamas can't govern themselves, is because they keep voting, I guess supposedly voting in this terrorist government, and so basically they're not trying to just kind of do better by their people. They're putting all their resources towards instigating battles and war against Israel. So it's
well, and of course, one thing that Cenk tries to say is that it's like, well, Israel is just, they're killing the Palestinians en masse.
Indiscriminately.
And indiscriminately, it's like, no, you're failing to actually speak the truth and say, when Israel targets Palestinians, they're not targeting civilians. They are targeting specific leaders who hide like terrible, pathetic cowards behind civilians because they use them as human shields.
Yeah. Anybody who actually really looks into the compares tactics, compares how Israel conducts their warfare and how Hamas conducts their warfare. Hamas will fire rockets indiscriminately.
Oh, just into a crowd
anywhere.
They'll fire them anywhere.
City. Yeah, and they don't care who it hits as long as it's max casualties. Israel will actually go out of their way to warn people to leave
they'll drop
area.
pamphlets, they'll do all sorts of things to try and save lives. But Hamas has so either brainwashed the civilians that they use them as human shields to protect them, or they will deliberately hold them hostage so the death count on behalf of the Israelis is higher.
Yeah. So just a couple of things that need to, because Cenk never addresses that. He like he said, he sees them as morally equivalent.
Yeah, they're not.
That they're both equally moral. It's nah, not much.
So we'll keep going.
In the past, you said not good enough. But the current state of affairs is the absurdity of the Israelis saying, we will not allow you to have a state because you theoretically say that we cannot have a state when we already have one. But no, you're literally preventing them from having a state. So since you are preventing them, doesn't that make you a monster who doesn't bove in freedom? And then all of your empty talk about, how much you love freedom is total garbage because you don't think it applies to.
Okay, Cenk is being an absolute fool.
Yeah.
Because he's like, well, you're speaking about freedom, but you don't really want them to have freedom and you don't care about freedom. It's just, you're just talking out your butt. No. It's like, you would not support, if we had actual Nazis and fascists in North America, or if we had a faction that said, well, we want to basically capture and hold women and use them only for breeding. And if that party was the dominant party and was to get elected, and then another power, another nation had the ability to stop them from coming to power and stop them from enslaving women, they would do so. They would prevent them. And that's not an act against freedom. That is an act not only of pro-freedom, but is an act of self-preservation.
Well, it's also a category error. See, the problem is he's saying that you don't want them to have freedom. I'm like, there's two different things going on here. One is whether or not, Israel is this is about foreign policy. Whether or not Israel will agree to to give up land, right? That's the decision. That's nothing to do with freedom. That is all a foreign policy decision about whether what they want to do to create a peace deal. Okay, it's like saying that America won't let Native Americans or all these Native tribes have freedom because it won't give them huge swaths of land that they demand. It's like, that's not about freedom. They're free to do to live the free way within their borders. But what they're asking for is has to be balanced with a whole bunch of different things. You can't. It's not a freedom issue. This is the problem with what Cenk is arguing. He's like, you hate freedom. It's like, no. Israel has to make a legitimate decision that takes into account both their own
safety,
security, which is important, and also whether or not this is going to, in the balance of things, become something that's that works towards peace. They don't believe it will, and they believe that this will actually be more dangerous, towards their own people. So this is all about foreign policy and about peace negotiations, not about freedom. So
yeah, it's about national security over freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Like Cenk is just making a completely
And of course, Dennis is trying to address this, but of course, Cenk keeps shouting over him because, as we mentioned at the start of the video, this is how the left debates. They will shout you down. They will silence you. Anything to get their point across and try and vilify you. So let's continue.
The Palestinians.
You have a weird way of thinking.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Why can't the Palestinians have the same freedom that every other human being has?
If you allow me to speak, I'll tell you why it's weird. You believe there is a moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas. That is morally sick.
You are sick for not allowing Palestinians, millions of them, to be free. You don't believe in freedom, Dennis. You believe in oppression as long as it's on your side. Why can't they be free? Why can't Palestinians be free? Because they will choose a government you don't agree with? That is the definition of oppression.
Okay, there you go. Okay, the people heard my position. They heard yours.
Your position is, just to be clear, the Palestinians cannot be free. They are not equipped to handle freedom. Is that your position?
At this point, they would elect Hamas. When Israel did what you want and left Gaza, it ended up being run by the terror organization called Hamas.
So they would elect someone you don't agree with, and hence they are not allowed to have freedom. They would elect
someone who is committing mass murder.
What a big advocate of freedom of speech you are, Dennis. Wow, a shining advocate for freedom who says, if you don't elect who I want, you will never be free, and you'll be under our thumb and under occupation. You will never have your own country. That's literally what you're saying, Dennis.
Okay, here.
Oh my God.
So one big thing that I'll put out, and then I'll let you go on your little well, I know you want to jump in there.
I'm actually using this point to skip to the next target. But yeah, just add your point, and then he actually gets worse.
Oh, I'm sure he does. This is Cenk Prager, like we're talking about. He's not exactly known for being reasonable. So here's what he's doing. He is asking, every single thing that he's asking is a loaded question.
Yeah.
It's totally a loaded question. He's basically saying, like, wait, you believe in oppression, don't you? It's like, you don't believe in freedom, do you? Like, all of these are loaded questions. Like, it's not fair questions. Like, clearly he's poisoning the well by asking the questions the way he is. So he's not being, he's being totally disingenuous, number one. Number two, what he's doing, I can prove to you that his point is nonsensical, because he's saying, he's trying to frame it around the idea that, unless you do what we want, we won't let you have freedom. It's like, no. Okay, let me give you an example, a comparable example of why that argument doesn't hold up. If you say, let's say, for example, you have a mass murderer who finally got parole, you get to decide how much freedom that mass murderer gets. He doesn't have to free. If you say, well, that mass murderer is not allowed to own any weapons, and he's not allowed to go outside of the state, and he's not allowed to do this, and have all these restrictions because of his already guilty.
Because he's already proven his intent through his actions.
He's already proven that he's a dangerous person that needs to be
controlled,
watched, and needs to be controlled. Then that person does not get all the freedom that he wants.
Yep.
This is the exact same thing. Israel wants peace. It's already gotten peace from Egypt. Stop trying to attack it, so that they don't go after Egypt. But Hamas is constantly showing by all of their actions that they're basically going to attack and try to instigate Israel all the time. They don't deserve freedom in the same way that other countries deserve freedom, because they're a terrorist state. So no, they don't get freedom in the same way that a country that showed absolutely zero aggression towards you, it deserves freedom or essentially peace. It's not the same.
All right.
So yes, man.
What Danny is saying is right on point. And now we're going to move on to the next section. And the next section is where Cenk refuses to answer Dennis's question after he openly compares Israel to Nazi Germany and how they were dealing with the Jews.
This is not going to be good.
So yeah, we'll start here and just, it's brutal.
You're doing great.
Somebody should add up the amount of time I got to speak and you got to speak on this segment here. Your notion that kill ratio determines morality is really pathetic. We killed far more Germans than Germans killed Brits or Americans. Does that make America wrong in World War II? If kill ratio is your criterion, I'm curious, was America wrong?
No, Dennis, it depends on disproportionate power. You know who had disproportionate power? The Germans over the Jews. They had disproportionate power, and the state did it. The state of Germany did that to the Jewish population, to the Polish population, to all of those different people. But you would say, no, when the state does it, it's no big deal.
You can tell they're silencing Dennis right now. You can tell they're quiet. They're muting his mic.
Does it? It's no big deal. That's not terrorism. Only when civilians. Well, could Jews have fought back against Hitler and done it with great violence and tried to bomb him and kill him? Could they have done that? Would that have been morally conscious thing to do?
Okay, it has nothing to do with anything we discussed. Well, I don't understand your question. If the Jews could have bombed Hitler, should they have?
Yes.
Is that your question?
Yes.
Yes, they should have.
So if you're being oppressed, if you're being oppressed, you get to bomb the people oppressing you.
Are you comparing Israel to Hitler? I won't even argue with you. I just want to.
No, I'm asking you a simple question. I'm not drawing a comparison. I'm just asking you a simple question. If you're being oppressed, as the Jews were in Germany, are you allowed to bomb and kill your oppressors?
To Hitler. I won't argue with you. I want it yes or no. Are you comparing Israel to Hitler?
No, I'm asking the state power count.
So you're not. There's
no. I'm asking does state power count as terrorism? I think it does count. I think when the Germans killed all those people, that was terrorism. I think when America and Israel and Russia invade other countries and kill civilians, that's also terrorism. Doesn't that make logical sense?
No, not at all. Israel defends itself. End of issue.
That's literally what the Germans said. We must defend the homeland.
Okay, so you are comparing the Germans and Israel.
Okay, and go for it, Danny.
Wow, serious? Wow. Okay, so Dennis Prager brought up the example of because he was trying to point out that Cenk was making the point that kill count is really the thing that makes you bad
kill count.
Guy.
If you're doing it from what he was trying to say is that kill count from the state is what matters.
Yes,
and it's like, well, yes, the Israelis kill more because they try to have very pinpoint attacks, but their weapons are more potent than those of Hamas. But if Hamas had access and the ability to use those weapons, and if they had a state, then they would kill far more than they do, because Israel actually acts in self-defense. They act in self-preservation. Right. But what Cenk is trying to say is that, well, because they can't act, then, well, we don't know what they would do. Yeah. They probably wouldn't kill anyone. It's like, you are out of your flipping mind if you think that they wouldn't have equal kill counts if they had the opportunity and the ability and the technology.
Well, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, like what he was saying is like, the Americans killed far more Germans than the Germans killed them. So kill count isn't proof of morality. Like it's not about who kills the most. Now you have to use a better standard, which is what Dennis was pointing out. Cenk got caught because then he thought, "Oh, I'm going to avoid this argument by trying to make the case that the Germans, the state, was oppressing the Jews, and the Jews are basically trying to fight back." He's trying to make a comparison. Yeah. Now he screwed up because Dennis Prager kind of pointed out. He's like, "That's not a good idea."
Horrible comparison.
To compare the Israel with the Nazis. Yeah. That's he screwed up, but you can tell he was avoiding it like crazy. But you said,
he's avoiding it like crazy because, truthfully, he knows that if Nazi Germany had left the Jews alone during that time period, the Jews would have operated as normally. If Israel had allowed Hamas and the Palestinians to do exactly what Cenk wants, then they would actively go out and kill Jews. The comparison is completely invalid because the intent of those two groups, the four groups, the intent of Israel and Nazi Germany are no way comparable, and the intent of Hamas and the Jews during the Holocaust is in no way comparable. Cenk knows this, but he's lying openly.
Well, he knows this, but it's a very simple comparison. If you compare, let's just ignore the the completely insensitive nature of comparing like the Nazis
Yes.
and Israel. Let's just go past that, even though it was obviously caught. Not if you compare it like the Nazis, the German kind of like state, they hunted down Jews in order to basically put them in camps and all this kind of stuff. Then you compare that to Israel, they have done no such thing. They have actively tried as much as they can to like limit the amount of violence and to try to. And they only created the separation between them in Gaza because, that there were so many terrorist attacks following, the real establishment of the Jewish state. For much of their early history, Israel was attacked by foreign states.
Oh, they were constantly under attack.
Constantly attacked. The 6-Day War, the Yom Kippur War, all these kind of things. They all these states, Jordan and Egypt and Lebanon, all these other countries.
List
Syria,
goes on and on.
Yeah, but they realized they can't beat Israel by military attacks, so they changed their tactics to terrorist attacks. And so as a result, Israel had to respond by basically saying we can't have the Palestinians here because they are literally attacking our own citizens. So this is why they created that separation into Gaza. Yeah. And originally Gaza was occupied, but then they pulled out, and look what they've done with this whole situation.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we'll continue.
Comparing state power to state power. You're saying no, individuals are terrorists, Arabs are terrorists, but the Israelis are never terrorists, and the state is never terrorist.
This is mind-boggling. It's worth it. I'll play it on my show. You'll get a lot of publicity.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so Dennis Prager, who does not believe in freedom just for Palestinians. Everybody else, enjoy. Maybe you live under a Christian nation, and maybe that means governing you, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's optional, okay? We'll see, except they say govern, except that every Republican says, I don't believe in a separation of church and state. I've seen it 1,000 times. You're being totally disingenuous if you don't say that. You know that that's what they say, and that would be a religious oppression of the rest of us. We're not interested in the religious oppression. We're not interested in oppressing women and saying, hey, you have to serve us in the home. We're not interested in any of that oppression. Ironically, Dennis, what we want on the left is freedom, and for all of you right-wingers to get out of our damn lives.
Yes. You are a complete liar.
What a joke. You want to take this one?
Oh, well, everything that the left has done. What, even looking at the past 2 years, what did the left encourage? Mandatory masking on everything, mandatory vaccinations. Yep. They said that you can't leave your home.
You have to bake our cakes, and you have to make our flowers for our weddings because we like to force you.
You have to be tolerant and accepting and do the things that we want you to do, and we will use the power of state to enforce that upon you. The right doesn't want that. The right just says, well, we have certain principles that we want you to live by. He's trying to say that because the right opposes and the conservatives oppose abortion, that makes them controlling, and we don't want the left and the average population to live their lives. No, we have basic guiding principles that we follow, and one of those principles, Cenk, is a right to life, which I know you don't believe in, especially not for the Jews.
You don't have a right to dead babies. In the same way that the Palestinians have a right. Funny how that works. It's a obviously mischaracterization of the actual point. Like, he keeps saying he mentioned separation of church and state. I mean, obviously, if you've looked into this, you know that does not mean what the left always wants it to mean, which is that the state should that the church should stay out of
politics,
politics, which is not what that means. And
unfortunately, of course, that is how the Canadian churches have interpreted that.
Of course, but what it really means for those of those of us who've actually done our homework, it means that all it means is that the state does not have permission or right to create a state church. Yeah. In other words, the state can't make the Catholic Church the official church.
Yeah. We can't have the Church of England.
Can't have the Church of England, that kind of stuff. That's literally what it meant.
Yeah.
If they thought that the church shouldn't be involved in politics, they did a terrible job because that's exactly what they did in all of their policies. So.
Well, and of course, there's a new church which is getting involved in politics. It's the Church of Leftism, the Church of Scientism, and the Church of tolerance.
It's the Rainbow Church.
The Rainbow Church of complete nonsense. There was actually a very good Freedom Tunes episode about it. So we'll finish off this video and then we'll close out.
Right. So I understand how you operate. You have these long monologues. You go from subject to subject, and we can't analyze any one of them. I asked you, when Christians were in power in this country, did they ever force Christianity upon anyone? So I don't know what you're talking about when you say they don't believe in separation of church and state.
But that's why I love America. That's why. But Dennis,
you have a United States Congresswoman, Lauren Boebert, giving incessant speeches about how the Constitution doesn't say there's a separation of church and state, completely rewriting the Constitution and spreading this ideology that this should be a Christian nation. That is wrong. If you genuinely believe in freedom, as I do, as Cenk does, as most normal people who love America do, you should not force your religious doctrine on others.
Okay, if you're on the left as opposed to liberal, you don't believe in a free nation. I reject that because you suppress dissent.
No,
you're on our show.
We're not suppressing dissent at all.
You're right. Well, I don't get a chance to speak much, but you're right, and I honor that, and you are exceptional.
All right.
In this regard, you're an exception. But it has nothing to do with the generalization that the left suppresses dissent.
It doesn't.
That's true at every university. It is true at every corporation. Conservatives fear losing their jobs. Liberals do not.
Very good place to stop.
Boom. That's the way to do it.
The way that they treated Dennis Prager and the way that they basically tried to silence any point that he made and attacked him at every single opportunity and lied constantly about what he was saying and what conservatives believe. I felt it absolutely necessary to do a Shrewd check on this video just because the Young Turks is a massive platform on the left.
Yeah, it's gone downhill though.
But they still even if you look
they're big, obviously.
Oh yeah, they still have almost 6 million YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, but they're not growing.
They're not, and their videos don't get a ton of views for how many subscribers they have. But they are still a massive platform for the left.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they didn't allow Dennis Prager to have a chance to defend and rationalize his own views. So I was like, all right, we're going to rationalize his own views and explain them because this is our show.
But here's the thing. So you and I watched Tim Cast-IRL when he had a leftist kind of like guest on the show, and it was like you know the episode I'm talking about. I forget the guy's name, but the guy actually came on. He's actually a legitimate leftist, and it was Tim Pool and then him going back and forth, and then at the time it was Seamus who was kind of chiming in from time to time. But you can tell the guy was not being shut down. He was constantly being questioned about his beliefs, and they basically said okay, let's go about it this way, let's go about it that way.
Yeah.
The guy was still given a chance to actually present his views. That is an example of how
that's an example of how you actually properly do rational discourse.
But that is what they value, on the right, and I would say now essentially on the new right, which is basically anybody who is not like a lunatic leftist, they value discourse because he was trying to basically say, here's reason, here's facts, here's some articles, here's some evidence, let's talk about it. And then there was like an actual discussion. On this show, what you saw there, and it was so interesting how it actually played out, because here they are saying that the right hates freedom and the right hates it wants to force everyone else to do what it wants, at the exact same time that they are literally shouting down Dennis.
Yeah.
He says, no, I reject that because the left are the ones that are authoritarian. They're the ones that hate dissent. And then they're proving him right by shouting him down and
silencing him.
They're proving him right. They're like, no, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. And then they're shouting.
It would be conservatives that are doing this. It's like conservatives don't mute you when they don't like what you have to say.
Yeah, but it also shows like a big part of how does the lunatic left operate? They operate by appealing to emotions. Always emotions. What they want is they want their audience, or they're playing up to their audience because their audience wants them to to pwn the right wing, evil people, right? 2, They can't let a right-wing personality, they can't allow them to actually present their views because their audience, they know their audience. If a right-wing personality of any kind is allowed to speak for any amount of time, their audience would be exposed to something that they don't want them exposed to.
Yep.
That is important for them. They can't allow that to happen, which is why any left-wing show, from The View to CNN to all these other places, they will literally try to silence and to shut down and to shout down anybody who they disagree with, because they know their audience can't allow their audience to believe that. And they will get crucified by their own audience if they let them talk unopposed. And so their whole modus operandi, is they have to take the high ground, accuse them of all sorts of things, and then just have this smug, arrogant attitude like, we're better than them.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't actually prove their point, they just need to throw out a million accusations and hope that they'll stick. But in reality, their audience isn't benefiting. It's just basically like feeling like, we own these evil people. They're proving Dennis right that the left believes, lunatic left believes that they're evil, and they won't let him prove otherwise.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's why we chose this video, and that's why Cenk Uyghur and the Young Turks, you got checked.
Kids, suck it.
You can suck it.
You can
kick
rock.
So that was the end of today's bonus section. I will see you guys tomorrow for the live stream. And Danny, I'll see you on Tuesday. Yeah. Actually, I'll probably see you at church on Sunday. Or are you going on your hike?
I'm going on my hike.
Shame, you sinner.
What can I say?
All right. Okay.
God is in nature too, man. God is in nature too.
Yes. But I'm going to church and going to
Life Chain. Definitely recommend it.
I'm getting my parents to come.
Cool. That sounds fun.
Tate was unfortunately busy.
Well, I'm going to send lots of people your way. So, anyways,
great.
Go back to your show. So, but this is fun. I actually really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was great. I really miss these videos where we go point by point and we analyze them. Like, unfortunately, we can't do this was a longer segment, which is nice. We can really break down and analyze every point that they make. But usually, when we do these videos, it's like,
they can get pretty long.
We have to make we have to do a 4-minute video, because otherwise this video would be like 50 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
So, all right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. And as always, God bless.